The Subcommittee on Technology and Innovation will come to order. Good morning. Welcome to today's hearing entitled Creating and Growing New Businesses, Fostering U.S. Innovation. In front of you are packets containing the written testimony, biographies, and truth and testimony disclosures for today's witnesses. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes for an opening statement. Before we get started, even though Ms. Edwards is not here, I would like to welcome her when she gets here, because she is the new ranking member of this subcommittee, and I'm very eager to be working with her in the next coming year and a half. So we're very excited to have her as the new ranking member. But the goal of today's hearing is to learn more about U.S. startup companies, which are engines of both transformative innovations and job creation. We'll be hearing testimony on the obstacles impeding entrepreneurs from starting a new company from scratch or from expanding a fledgling company to a place of rapid growth. As this subcommittee sits at the intersection of technology and innovation, we are uniquely positioned to address topics affecting competitiveness of emerging high-growth industries. Today's discussion is the second in a series focused on advancing U.S. innovation in a constrained budget environment. Earlier this fall, we held a hearing on the opportunities and challenges of cloud computing. In the coming months, it is my intention to address a range of topics, including the role of standards in international trade, the importance of collaborative research partnerships in the innovation ecosystem, and new developments in wireless communications. In these difficult times, it is important that we continue to empower our nation's innovators to maintain our economic competitiveness. Entrepreneurs and new businesses have played a vital role in advancing both job creation and innovation in our country. Over the last 3 decades, new businesses have created nearly 40 million jobs and have been responsible for nearly all net new job creation. New businesses also facilitate the spread and adoption of innovation because they are more likely to seize new developments in order to create market niches for themselves. From our founding, the United States has always cultivated the entrepreneurial spirit of its citizens, recognizing the vitality new businesses bring to commerce. Economist Robert Solow was awarded the Nobel Prize for his work demonstrating how economic innovation was the most powerful factor driving our country's growth and productivity in the 20th century. The public and private sectors have worked to support entrepreneurship by facilitating new business formation, access to capital, and financial rewards for success. In turn, these new businesses have added significantly to the growth and dynamism of our economy. Unfortunately, recent studies have found that the environment for new business has grown increasingly unfavorable. In the past 3 years, the number of new businesses launched has fallen 23%. Recently, the World Bank's Doing Business report showed that the U.S. has dropped in the ease of starting a business category from 3rd to 13th since 2007. Capital investment in startup companies has decreased, and far fewer small companies are holding initial public offerings. But, as some of our witnesses may testify today, a number of these challenges predate the economic downturn of the last few years. The continued decline in new business formation and growth puts our nation's job creation and innovative capacity at risk. Recognizing this link between startup businesses, innovation, and job creation, the subcommittee is interested in hearing from today's witnesses about the environment for new business formation and obstacles preventing entrepreneurs from forming new companies and accelerating their growth. This is a difficult question to answer, given our current budgetary challenges. So I especially hope to hear from our witnesses examples of what the federal government can do to eliminate barriers to entrepreneurship, in addition to any other creative ideas that they may have. I'd like to extend my appreciation to each of our witnesses for taking the time and effort to appear with us today, and we look forward to your testimony. I now recognize the gentlelady from Maryland, the new ranking member of this subcommittee, Ms. Edwards, for her opening statements, and welcome to the subcommittee as the ranking member. I recognize Mr. Julian Mann to present his testimony.
Mr. Chairman and committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this morning. In 2007, I was working as a student intern with NASA and realized that the billions of dollars we were spending building satellites as a nation was largely driven by the antiquated set of technology on which these satellites were based. But I had an epiphany. The technology that we were using to build academic satellites in our Stanford University research lab could have real impact on the way in which our nation conducts business in space, if only we could bring the necessary investment from the private sector to accelerate the development and commercialization of the technology. This idea became Skybox. I co-founded Skybox Imaging in January 2009 to revolutionize the use of satellite imagery in characterizing daily activity across the surface of our planet. At Skybox, we combine our own low-cost microsatellite design with the Silicon Valley approach to storing, processing, and disseminating massive quantities of imagery and derived data. We have raised $21 million in venture capital to date, have quadrupled in size over the last 9 months, and now directly and indirectly employ over 75 engineers across the United States. People talk about the decline in American competitiveness, but there's a real opportunity to make up that lost ground. We need more companies like Skybox, and I have 3 ways in which we can facilitate that growth. Improve the transfer of commercially viable IP out of research institutions and into the private sector, create mechanisms that assist startup companies in alleviating governmental regulations that are restricting innovation, and reforming acquisition practices to make the government a better customer to emerging ventures. As we started seriously investigating making Skybox a reality, Stanford provided a number of resources that were essential to our commercial growth. We were also encouraged to take the idea outside the university if we were serious about such commercialization. There was sound reason for this. Graduate students conducting steadily progressing multi-year projects produce the majority of university research. The pace within new ventures is much faster. New ventures are successful due to their ability to rapidly change course in order to ensure convergence between product and market opportunity. This inherent lack of synchronicity between the 2 groups makes productive collaboration restrictively difficult to pursue. Instead, by transitioning the work from academia to industry when the focus shifts from fundamental research to commercialization, Stanford ensures alignment between the current stage of development and the environment in which said development is taking place. Stanford is particularly effective in providing programs that assist in facilitating this transition, from courses designed to help entrepreneurial-minded researchers understand the business plan creation and venture capital financing processes, to investor and advisor introductions provided through the extended Stanford network. A distinct pipeline exists to help educate and foster entrepreneurship within the university. There are numerous examples of this technology transition approach working extremely effectively. Google, Cisco, Hewlett-Packard, Yahoo, Sun Microsystems, and VMware were all founded in this way. Skybox follows a long tradition in progressing from research to commercialization by leaving academia. Navigating burdensome federal regulations while simultaneously trying to build and grow a business can kill a new venture. As a commercial satellite imaging company, Skybox has felt this pain since the day of our founding. One set of regulations has been particularly restrictive: the International Traffic in Arms Regulations. Beyond driving up our engineering costs by up to a factor of 10, of greater concern is how ITAR has reduced American competitiveness. Because the majority of the global market for small satellite technology is international, domestic suppliers restricted by the ITAR have fallen behind their foreign competitors. When we have approached these foreign suppliers with the idea of a deeper collaboration or co-development, they have largely declined. They are concerned that they will not be able to provide the resultant technology to their existing customer base if they partner with American companies. This is a real problem. Rather than having the government attempt to create what amounts to public venture capital, the government needs to consider how it can be a better customer to innovative and growing companies. Ultimately, the private sector is very efficient at identifying technologies that have real commercial viability and providing the capital necessary to grow these technologies. Existing government acquisition models have not kept up with the pace of technological innovation and fail to express the market need in a way that is addressable by commercial product companies. Consequently, many innovative technology companies do not even consider doing business with the federal government because it is simply too costly to do so. Entrepreneurs are successful in the private sector because they find ways of delivering capabilities that do more with less. This is the same challenge that we face as a nation today. Working with new ventures is dissimilar from working with other types of organizations. It requires alternate communication and outreach strategies, new acquisition methodologies, and differing types of governmental support. It also yields novel solutions, engages our nation's best and brightest innovators, and ensures that we remain the technological powerhouse that has been our enduring strength. We must find new ways of tapping the incredible resource that is our entrepreneurial base to solve the challenges that face our nation. This change will not be immediate, nor does it require astronomical capital to support. With concentrated effort, advocacy, and partnership, we can bring government and the technology and innovation sector together for our mutual and enduring benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mann.
And Mr. Mann, in your testimony, you talk about the existing government acquisition processes and procedures that have not kept up with technological innovation. Why do you think we have the problem? And again, what do you think the remedy should be?
Well, in my experience, traditionally, the acquisition model is one around developing custom solutions for the government. And what that results in is a multi-year cycle just to get to the point of even letting an initial contract for that development to take place. At this point in time, technological innovation within the private sector is happening on an 18 to 12-month time scale. So by the time that initial contract goes out, you're already beginning the procurement process for an antiquated technology.
Good answer. Thank you, Mr. Mann, very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, again for the time you owe back.
And Mr. Mann, you talked about ITAR and kind of the unintended consequences that have come out of that, especially for your company. Mr. Lindsey talked about a 10-year sunset for regulations. There's also various pieces of legislation one that I'm working on also is that after 10 years you actually have to go back, reevaluate, do a cost-benefit analysis to make sure that it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, and if it could be done in a way that's less burdensome on the private sector. How would something like the sunset provisions that Mr. Lindsey was talking, or other types of legislation said that we reevaluate various regulations after a 10-year cycle, how would that help you? Would it help you in terms of getting rid of some of that overly burdensome and also unintended consequences from legislation that's passed that nobody thought was going to happen?
I think the answer there is absolutely. Given the history, the age of the ITAR, when it was initially conceived, international competitors were not in the same place when it comes to space technology. For example, obviously the ITAR covers much larger than space-based technologies. But I absolutely think with some kind of sunset or revisit on those regulations, we would have seen at this point international competition catching up and now eclipsing our own progress, and hopefully made necessary changes to the regulation to try to alleviate that problem.
Okay, thank you very much. I now recognize Mr. Lujan for 5 minutes.
Mr. Mann, federally funded scientists can be a tremendous resource for small and startup businesses. I come from a state that has 2 of the 3 NNSA national laboratories with Los Alamos National Labs and Sandia National Labs, in addition to the Air Force Research Laboratory, Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center, Satellite Office, in addition to NASA with White Sands down in the southern part of the state. Whether it can help with what material to use or how best to analyze a complex business problem, small businesses throughout the state have made good use of the program in New Mexico as well as some outside of New Mexico. Is there something that can be done on a federal level to facilitate federally funded scientists providing technical assistance to small businesses, taking into consideration this notion of the anti-competitive clause or things of that nature that exist with some of our national labs?
I certainly think there could be benefit to that kind of collaboration. I'm slightly speechless because I haven't really given that significant thought in the past. I do know, for example, one thing that I have been in conversations about is making the facilities available, international labs available to small businesses, because we have, the taxpayers have put substantial investment in building out those facilities. They often go underutilized, and small businesses are particularly the ones that don't have access to sufficient capital to build out those facilities themselves. So that I can certainly see as being something as far as more direct research collaboration. Again, in my testimony, I addressed the idea of government not acting as a venture capitalist. That was, I realize now, a nuanced point in that venture capitalists take technologies that have been substantially validated and target them at markets. The government should be investing in technologies, bringing them up to that level of being ready for venture capitalists to move forward with, not picking the technologies that will actually be financial success.
It's spoken about, you're at Stanford, correct? Were there courses that you took at Stanford that were helpful in terms of entrepreneurship? Oh,
absolutely. In fact, the original business plan for Skybox was created within an STVP course. So Stanford absolutely has an educational pipeline designed to help innovators understand what they need to do, and then, as I've previously mentioned, also show them the door with the perspective of, if you want to commercialize it, take it outside the university.
And do you think this is something that can be done elsewhere? Is there something unique to at Stanford with its locations and its connections, or how Do you think can be replicated?
I absolutely think it can be replicated. MIT has done a phenomenal job of building up a similar type of base. Stanford is currently in a bid to build the Stanford New York City campus, which would similarly create a center for innovation. But I don't think it's just limited to those schools. I think really any university that has really active research and development capabilities should be investigating ways to create educational opportunities that facilitate that kind of external transition.
One other question before I run out of time, or maybe I'll lead into a question I'll put in for the question for the record. I'm currently developing legislation to improve the Bayh-Dole Act. One of my goals is to make sure, whenever possible, the taxpayer-funded R&D turns into American-made products and American jobs. And so, since my time is expiring, I'll put that in for QFR. To ask about what can be done, what Congress can do to better incentivize domestic production of inventions that began with federal R&D investments, because, as I said, I think that's one of the critical things we need to do here. As people are asking where are the jobs going to come from, what are the future American jobs, I think the R&D that we are doing here, a lot of it funded by the federal government, can better be turned into to American jobs. With that, I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Lipinski. I now recognize the third member in a row from Illinois, Mr. Holmgren, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I have a couple quick questions for you. First of all, as you, I think, are aware, for the last 30 months, 28 of those months, we've had unemployment here in America above 9%. I mean, this is brutal, brutal times. I am absolutely convinced that a big part of getting this turned around again is getting innovation and entrepreneurship growing again. One question I want to start with for each of you, if you could just give a brief answer on this, is really a question for us as policymakers, what our focus should be. And I know both of these things are important, but I'm asking you, which is more important? Is it more important for us to target policies designed to provide an immediate boost to our economy, or is it more important to have economic policies designed to create conditions for long-term economic growth? And if I can just get a thought, again, I know you'd say both, but which is more important?
I would say that Congress doesn't have a lot of leverage or a lot of money right now to do short-term stimulus. So I think that's more in the hands of the Federal Reserve at this point than it is in the hands of Congress. So I think Congress's focus ought to be on the long-term growth issue.
I, too, agree that it should be focused on long-term, especially with regard to the fact that venture capitalists are looking at longer time horizons for return on investment. They're looking for scenarios in which that kind of investment will generate return.
Agree with you. Thank you. Ooh, got loud all of a sudden. But any suggestions you have on this, of how we can bring more certainty to this over the long term? I absolutely agree. That's what we've got to be focused on, especially in these times of very little resources. Do want to shift a little bit, and Mr. Mann, I appreciate your testimony and really the experiences you had at Stanford that really led to the creation of your business. I wondered if each of you could just give me kind of a thought you might have of your current feel for current undergraduate and graduate students. As how they're continuing to view opportunities for entrepreneurship. Do you see any recent trends in the way potential entrepreneurs view opportunities to create their own companies? And are there cost-effective ways that we can promote the benefits of entrepreneurship to undergraduate and graduate students?
So I haven't actually seen a significant change in the way. That may just be because Silicon Valley tends to be a bubble. Stanford is a bubble within a bubble. And I've had my head in the sand for the last 3 years trying to build a company. But ultimately, there's always a subset of undergrad and graduate researchers who are more interested in taking what they invent and going out and commercializing it than they are in sort of the pure pursuit of academic research. And I don't think that is something that has been changing in any large way.
I would add Thanks for being here today. I think this is really a crux of what we're seeing in colleges today. Some of the college students who have seen overseas, they're crammed full of knowledge and they're encyclopedias, basically. But what's different here in the United States is we're innovators. We're creators. We want to see what's on the next edge of the envelope. And that's what makes this country so great, and that's what we need to keep on focusing on in the future. Mr. Mann, I got a question for you. Stereotypical, expect the next great thing to be from some college student that's skipping class in a garage somewhere, developing, something. And would you consider that the same? Would you consider that a stereotype that's what we're seeing today? Are they in the college system? Are they out of the college system? Are they just using their own innovation to get this done? What do you think?
I would definitely say that still exists today. I mean, that's exactly my story. We were at Stanford doing the research, and ultimately left the university. I dropped out of school in a long history of entrepreneurs chasing their vision because I believe we had the opportunity to fundamentally change the world.
Well, kudos to you. One of the things in your company, I was reading about your company as well. You had a little bit of trouble trying to get some venture capitalists to drop out from Stanford. Basically come and believe in us, right? And here you are with this great idea, this fantastic idea that is going to work, but yet you're finding trouble to get venture capital. How can we help young venture people like yourself to be able to get the capital that they need to follow that dream and ambition?
Well, again, the biggest thing came back to the education piece. Ultimately for Skybox, in the summer of 2009, we were trying to convince investors used to investing in internet companies to invest in a satellite company. That was not a particularly easy task. So through the activities of the STVP programs, we came to understand how to position an opportunity in a way that it was ultimately fundable. And ultimately it meant finding Vinod and enabling Vinod to see that we were doing to the satellite industry the exact same thing that he and his computers at Sun did to the mainframe.
Yeah. Mr. Rothrock, what do you think? How do you see guys?
Thank you, Mr. Kravac. And I would like to thank the witnesses for their valuable testimony and the members for their questions. The members of the subcommittee may have additional questions for the witnesses, and we will ask you to respond to those in writing. The record will remain open for 2 weeks for additional comments and statements from members. The witnesses are excused. Thank you all for coming. This hearing is now adjourned.